The Support Group, Chapter 1. I woke up, not being able to breathe, nothing, no air, no words. I was barely awake, and yet I found myself out of bed, standing and struggling to open my bedroom door. My sister was screaming for help, and the next thing I knew, my dad was here, and everything went black. I passed out. An hour later, I woke up in the Morgan Stanley Children's Hospital emergency room. A familiar place, the place I have been many times before.
Bianca, you're awake.
My dad says. Dad, what happened? Is it getting worse? I say.
I'm afraid so, my dear. The doctors say that your cystic fibrosis is getting worse and that they want you to stay here for a while in the teen wing of the hospital.
He said in a worried voice. I began to cry. I remained in the ER only for a couple hours, and then I was wheeled up in my hospital bed to the teen wing of this advanced New York City Children's Hospital. The hallways were brightly colored and cluttered with unique and fun graphic designs. The hospital staff are friendly and laid back. This is the home of the sick teens in need of permanent care. There are classrooms, lounge rooms, and spectacular patients' rooms. We continued to wheel round for a bit, and I decided that I would wait until tomorrow to settle in. As soon as the hospital bed came to a stop, I was in my new patient room, and I fell fast asleep. The next morning, I was woken up early for breakfast, which consisted of a lot of fruit, and the nurse told me the many tests awaited me throughout the day. Further that day, I was wheeled around in a wheelchair, room to room, taking part in blood tests, sweat tests, chest x-rays, and lung function tests. These tests were not fun, but they needed to be done, and after they were done, I got to relax in my room for the rest of the day. Until a nurse came in, saying that I was stable enough and that I needed to attend the teen patient support group that night. If you didn't know, I was now hooked up to breathing tubes to assist with my breathing, and I wasn't too sure on how I felt about going to a social group that night. Meeting new people did not seem like the best thing for me right now. It was now 5:45 p.m., and a new nurse came to get me. She wanted to escort me to the teen support group. I was now allowed to change into my own personal comfy clothes, and I brushed my messy hair. Then the nurse helped me to get my oxygen tank and IV ready for travel. She escorted me down the many bright hallways, and as we got closer, the more nervous I became. This was it. I was here, at the door of what looked like a conference room. I was terrified, and I looked through the small door window to see a lot of other teens, just like me and in worse conditions. They were gathered in a large circle of chairs, just like the good old kindergarten shared circles. I was now standing just inside the doorway, and I froze, with no movement, like a deer in headlights. The nurse tried to tug on my wrist, and she said,
Bianca, let's go. And sit down. You might meet some new friends.
But nothing happened. I continued to stand still, and now it was becoming obvious, and the other teens sitting in the circle began to notice and look at me.
Hi guys, this is our new friend Bianca, and I would like you to make her feel welcomed,
the nurse said, and in unison, Hi Bianca, the group said back. Suddenly, I unfroze. I was smiling, and a boy came and grabbed a chair to help me sit down. This boy was Sam Woods, and sure enough, he was going to be the closest and first friend I was going to have at this hospital. The support group leads off with brief introductions of everyone, and this was followed by a question period. It truly wasn't so bad. I got to know a lot about the people here and who I will be staying with in the same wing of the hospital. For once, I felt welcomed in a hospital, and it felt naturally like a home more than a sterile environment filled with sick children. And then it was my turn for my introduction, and I was a little nervous, so I based it upon what others said. Hi, my name is Bianca, and I am 17 years old. I was diagnosed with an extreme case of cystic fibrosis, and I would like to describe myself as artsy, shy, and a book lover. In response, the group leader said,
Thank you so much, Bianca, for sharing, and I hope you enjoy your journey here. Everyone, please give her a round of applause.
After the clapping was done, that night's meeting concluded, and Sam and I continued to walk to the nearest lounge room to get to know each other. The night was young, and the game room was active, with patients playing video games, ping pong, and even pool. This place was truly full of adventure and friends. Sam and I grabbed a seat at the beanbag chairs in the corner of the lounge room, and we began to talk. Sam asked how I was and if I was doing fine in this hospital setting. I told him that everything was pretty good so far, and now I had some questions that I wanted to ask him. So why are you here, at the hospital? He looked me dead straight in the eyes and said, Because I have a disease and I'm going to drop dead any day now. I sat there shocked, and I didn't know what to say anymore. He then laughed. I was joking. I really had cancer in my arm, and I'm staying here to keep up with my ever-so-traveling osteosarcoma. He then pulled up his sleeve to reveal a prosthetic arm from his right elbow down. I have never met someone with a prosthetic arm, and I was now so confused on how to keep a conversation going after this. Sam then continued to ask me more questions, but not sickness-related ones. He asked about me and my life. This made me realize that yes, we are dying, but he genuinely cared about me as a person and not as a patient friend. I learned so much about Sam Woods that day. He was a lacrosse player who was being scouted to play in the college league. He had his senior year all planned out up until the pain in his lower arm was not just a sports injury, it was the dreadful cancer. His life plans were flipped upside down, and he had to move across the country with his family to seek medical care here at the Morgan Stanley Children's Hospital. This brief glimpse into his life gave me the feeling that we have known each other forever. And yet, this was only the start to our ever so growing friendship. After our brief get to know each other, Sam walked me back to my room and said,
Don't make any plans for tomorrow. I'm going to give you the ultimate hospital tour.
I responded, What time should I expect to be picked up? He said.
Noon sharp, and have a good night.
I yelled. You too, down the hallway, as he began to walk away. For some reason, I woke up the next day with a huge smile on my face and feeling as if I have had everything I could ever want in life. A gorgeous boy seeking my awkward attention, and everything just felt so right. I looked forward to seeing Sam that whole morning, waiting for the clock to strike noon, and as it crept closer, the more nervous I became. My deep thoughts began to arise. Will he show up? What if he was only being nice to me? They began to clutter my mind like a swarm of wasps. It was now noon, and I was anxiously waiting, but trying not to make it obvious. I began to unpack some of the things that my dad dropped off for me. I began to decorate my room by adding my original artworks, books, and things that generally made me happy, like fashion magazines. 20 minutes passed, and this was hurtful. Sam, the boy of my dreams, was a no-show. And there I was, looking like a fool who had their hopes shattered, but this did not stop me. I continued to wonder where he might be and why he would give me such false hope. I soon realized that we were in a sick kid's hospital and that this could be the factor and reason for his absence. My brain was overthinking. Maybe something went wrong, or he forgot that we made plans. So I took it upon myself to find out where he was. I began searching the closest patients' rooms and lounge rooms. He was nowhere to be found. Maybe he was in his room, but I didn't know where that was. I asked the nurse walking by, Excuse me, nurse. I was wondering if you knew where a patient by the name of Sam Woods would be? She glared at me as if I was crazy and continued to walk very determined down the hallway. In my head, I thought maybe she didn't belong to this side of the hospital, or maybe she just didn't care. I began to walk down to the main desk of the teen patient wing, where many nurses and doctors gathered. I was a bit nervous, but I built up the guts to ask a nurse by the name of Jackie. She responded with glee and excitement.
Oh dear, let me check the files to see if I could find where your friend might be.
She continued to browse through her tablet, and 2 minutes later she had come to the conclusion that he was at a very important and in high demand physio appointment. The feeling of ease rushed over my body, and my negative thoughts simply disappeared. He did not forget about me. I continued my afternoon waiting around for Sam in my room, where he said he would pick me up for our tour. While waiting, I watched a couple episodes of Friends, and at about the third one in, Sam entered my room. He stood there, in the doorframe, with a smile as per usual, and a wheelchair. He chanted,
Your tour guide is here.
I looked at the wheelchair, confused, and I asked, Why the wheelchair? He said,
Only the fanciest form of transportation for the one and only Bianca.
I was flattered, and I made my way to the wheelchair to sit down.
Okay, Miss Bianca, I'm going to bring you on a fantastic tour of all the hot spots and tourist attractions of the Morgan Stanley Children's Hospital.
I was so overwhelmed that a boy like Sam was going to put this much effort into our first few days at a hospital. Sam wheeled me down to the beautiful cafeteria, the children's hospital playroom where I saw so many happy sick kids, and nothing could have made me more happier. He then stopped the wheelchair in the middle of the elevator hallway and locked it. He moved in front of me and said,
Let's start our adventure here. I'm going to sneak us out and we're going to take a stroll in Central Park.
I nodded my head, and we both started walking to the closest elevator going down. He told me that it was going to be easy to break out and that security usually lacked at this time. We made our way out of the hospital and began our walk towards Central Park. And little did anyone know this was only going to be a beautiful friendship and nothing more, a friendship.